A very good morning to you all. Welcome to Sunrise Daily today. I'm Chamberlain also.
Rise and shine. It's a beautiful Wednesday morning. I'm Kayode Okikili.
Good morning and welcome to the program. I'm Ayo Makinde.
Yes. And, when you
looking for a way to step into this, right? Because
it's always very interesting when you look at bills in the National Assembly, because sometimes you wonder, oh yeah, this looks good, but
execution.
So many hurdles. First, you need to
so many
ask
considerations.
Yourself, well, yeah, you know, assuming one house or one chamber passes it, then you think about the other chamber, then you think about how they need to send it up, you know, then you think about how they need to, you know, assign to it, and then it becomes law. So, but you know, the beauty of all of this thing is that that's what democracy is about. You have to just take those processes in, go about them, and be optimistic at that. And so societies evolve. Democratic processes evolve as a result of all of these things. That's why they have amendments to the Constitution, because it wasn't perfect the first time out. So they just have little adjustments, you know. And so this thing about qualification for elective officials, president, governors, National Assembly members, those vying for political office, because we all know that if you need to get certain things done for the private sector, you know what is required of you. When they stipulate it, you know, it's not a tea party. But for our politicians, you remember all the arguments where they tell you, you only need to have attempted school cert. You didn't need to pass school cert. So, but we need to raise the bar.
Yeah.
You know, because there's a lot more. And interestingly, you know, I think the Senate, the similar thing came up in the Senate. Senator Stefano's gang in 2020 did do something about that. So, looking at all of those provisions. And now, remember the Speaker also mentioned something like that they wanted to do something about it. So, in the House, and in the Senate, it's still second reading at the time. So now, they're looking at it in the House of Reps. So, it will be interesting, I dare say.
And, you know, the argument for Honorable Onanuga, who's, leading this. Interestingly, she's a woman, and I like that, you know. The fact that she's, you know, trying to change the dynamics is the fact that, as you said, in the private sector, you know the qualifications you need to have to attain some certain levels. The least you need to have is, you know, NYC or sort of. In fact, they say you need to have 7 years experience sometimes, and you wonder, I just graduated for crying out loud, you know?
Yeah.
So, I mean, we know how hard it is. So imagine people that are in governance. By the way, governance determines almost everything that happens. It affects the private sector, every sector. So imagine that the qualification is just school setting. In fact, you even say just attempt, not even to have passed some time. So that's essentially the thinking behind this. We need to standardize it such that the kind of leadership you expect in the private sector, you find it in the public sector as well, or elective positions. And that's when we talk about corporate governance and the rest of it, which is good, but, you know, as you said, there are a lot of issues to consider here. So, I mean, the argument is based on the fact that for a BSc holder or equivalent, it means you have gotten extra experience compared to the school cert leaver. So you've had 4 years, 5 years, depending on ASUU strikes. We'll get to that one, by the way. You've had that experience in school, so you've learned, you know, within the walls, you've built character, you've learned how to, you know, deal with people, how to handle different things. It's a different ballgame entirely when it comes to the university setting. So that's the thinking. But when you come to the operationalization of it, first, I'm asking myself, will this meet 2023 elections? That's the first question. So,
well, I'm not too sure.
It doesn't look like it, right? So maybe this will meet.
Or else they will throw it out. So what do you mean? What do you mean? You
me that I've planned already. So that's one consideration that might probably affect the fate of this bill at the floor of the House or the National Assembly at large. So that's on the one hand. And on the other is the fact that how much of a, and I hate to say this, but we have to say the truth. Incidentally, we'll have that conversation, but how much value do we have currently in our tertiary education?
Which is a different subject matter entirely.
You know, so we need to actually, as we are sorting this out, also sort that one out. Because if you say that should be the minimum qualification, hey, you know how these things can go, honestly. People just waltz in and do what they want as far as they have that certificate. And that's two. The third one is this. We need to also find a way to ensure that we elect people with, you know, the right character. the right personality. Certificates will not do that, honestly. So how do we fix that? Because the fact that you have first class or second class does not mean you're an honest person, you're a person of integrity. So there needs to be also that sort of system that trains people in that culture.
But this will be a start.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, talking about classes, first class, second class, as Chamberlain said, just have a class.
Wow.
I think that's just what we have now, which is unfortunate. You're talking about you're talking about the private sector.
Yeah.
Even in the public sector, you have to have a minimum first degree to get into the public service, to become a civil servant. So that is on the one hand. That needs to be put out there. Secondly, you talked about, Kayode, you talked about years of experience. Well, there are those who would argue that maybe you should just go out and volunteer. But for a new graduate, for God's sake,
No, that's a very, very valid point. But incidentally, we sweep it under the carpet. We don't give it the kind of attention it requires.
Look, where are you going to get the opportunity to what's the word now? Gain experience if you don't have the opportunity at all. Even
in
to
politics
get,
or in a private?
I'm talking about in life now. Even to get a little bit of experience through internship, volunteering, you have a hard time. Because as you said, Kayode, most people are looking first of all for character. If you don't have the right character, you don't have the requisite knowledge or experience that is required, you are not given that opportunity. Bring that into politics. And allow me to...
Do you allow for volunteering in politics?
I think that there should be something like that.
That's what he's talking about.
Community service, something that shows that you understand the people and you want to serve, not collect.
We've spoken frequently here about the leadership recruitment process. There are banks today, before they engage you, you first of all come into a training system. That's your first leg in the door.
Yeah.
Do we have such a thing in politics? Let me reference something that the Vice President said recently. The process for evaluation and interview of judges, we've talked about that frequently, men and women statutorily empowered to literally determine the lives and livelihoods of others is one of the least rigorous processes imaginable. Bring that into politics. How rigorous is the process of selecting a candidate in the political parties?
Bow and go sometimes. So what's that thing again?
No. In the political parties, not even at the National Assembly.
Okay.
In the political parties.
In those parties, might is right.
Unfortunately. So, and those are the people that will govern no matter who you are. Professors, doctorate degree holders, master's degree holders, you name it. And there's one argument that I was having one conversation I was having with a friend yesterday. That
it's okay to have an argument.
Most elites do not vote. And these are the people who will sit behind their phones and, be arguing, what are they doing and all of that. Get involved in the process. There is this analogy that I've given here, and I'm thankful that some other people are talking about it. If the plate is dirty in the kitchen, before that plate can get clean, your hands must get dirty. You use water and soap, clean your hands and the plate before they can get dirty. But when you handle the plate, it's got to be dirty. You understand? Yeah. Oh, there is no glove for politics, unfortunately.
You use a dishwasher sometimes.
Okay. But so if we say politics is dirty, it's not politics that is dirty. It's the playing of it that is dirty. So you can get in and do something
Besides, we lack, we see this regularly. You see policies, you see certain things that come through, and you ask yourself, what is it sounds very basic. But because there's a dearth of critical thinking in the public sector, in the things that we see, there's a basis for that.
Which begins in the political parties. So how much, perhaps we need to have some regulations around a rigorous process of selecting people that will represent the political parties. Because by that time, it is already too late for the electorate to make a good choice. Sorry, Markwe.
Good morning, gentlemen. I'm just wondering, the passion that Ayo has come at this, he's almost taken away from the topic, which is about the certificates that are now going to be, is it upgraded by this new law? It's a very valid point which you've raised about the leadership recruitment process, and I think it draws it links very closely with the question which Kayode raised about what does this really change? Would the certificates really change the people that are going to be in political offices? And I think that's the major question for everyone. The people who have thought deeply about this, don't forget forget that there's something that the governor of Kaduna State came up with. It's called the Kashim Ibrahim Fellowship, and it's supposed to train leaders between the ages of 25 and 35, I think. It's for young people within that age bracket, and I think that they need to satisfy certain criteria. It's a highly competitive fellowship. And, you know, these kinds of things, a lot of Nigerians are beginning to realize this. A lot of young people are beginning to realize this, and they're subscribing to fellowships like this. Sadly, we don't have enough of this, the kind of things that can allow young people intern along the lines of leadership to see just what the process is like. Because it's a very valid question to ask, where do you intern? To say, okay, if tomorrow you're going to be, you know, a president of this country, how do you begin to, you know, intern in such a way that you could have learned the ropes, so that when you get there, you are able to make a substantial difference. You're not just learning to understand what needs to be done to change things. You're able to come up with original ideas because you've already been able to identify the problems. And I think that, you know, that should be the spirit behind this amendment, that it is taking us one step closer to getting to recruiting the right kinds of people, that they are higher in learning means that, you know, they have certain higher values. It's not to say that people who have school certs do not have high values, and it's not to say that people, you know, cannot have those kinds of values when they just have only a school certificate. But what it means is that your thinking has also been challenged even further. As Kayode already pointed out too, our education is not quite where it ought to be. So there are really deep questions that we really need to answer and to ask ourselves. The changes are welcome. I think a lot of people have already advocated for this change. The Speaker of the House of Representatives already gave a hint of this when he spoke at the, I think it was the convocation lecture organized by the University of Lagos recently. He did give a hint that they will be looking at changing the criteria for those who will be, you know, asking for leadership positions subsequently. But there are big questions as to what really that will change in terms of the type of people who eventually get into public office. And I think that while we seek to, you know, while we seek deeper answers to those questions, it might be worth looking at this model already adopted by the Kaduna State government, which, by the way, is not for just Kaduna people. It is for youth, young people, you know, across the length and breadth of the country. If you cannot afford Kennedy School of Governance, why not? Let us try and replicate that or make it bigger. Let us see how many more young people were able to get into the process. Gentlemen.
Well, you know, they don't intern because there's nothing to write them about in many of those places. So why bother? Why go intern if that is what people see? And besides, you know, you talked about the Big Four last time out in UK. Look at how they went through the ranks. This will change a lot. But let's not look too far ahead, because if you do, you would think this will change nothing. This would be a start. It's a pedestal. You remember the principle? When you want to start something, you start with baby steps. So this, you may not see that now, but I tell you, it will when this happens. But yes, we're optimistic, but you know, the last time the Speaker spoke about the electoral bill, we know how that ended. But we're still optimistic about all of this, notwithstanding. But you can go ahead, let us know what you think about all of these things. Perhaps this will start from the local government level.
Or should we
get
add
the
masters
thumbs out.
and PhD to it?
It's a start. This is a start. You will see how much impact it will make. You'll be shocked at that. But I'm sure that this will be a good start if it eventually sails through. All right, we'll be back and take a look at some of the dailies in a moment. Don't go away. Welcome back. Let's take you through some of the dailies. We'll start with Vanguard newspaper today. They're focusing on some of the issues that affected you yesterday. Look at that. That is the big lead on the front page of Vanguard newspaper today. Car engines damaged as FG marketers recall bad fuel. And it's not the first in this country that bad fuel is affecting things. Not the first. In fact, there's time many people didn't even notice. They just kept on wondering, what's going on? What's this? They didn't know this. So these are the things that that play out in this part of the world, and then so much riders here. FG rejects bad supplies from petrol importers, in plural, operational word, operative word, note that, we'll come to that later. Stations with bad products shut down. Public should be patient. Moment Ipman. Scarcity worsens, distribution chain disrupted. 80 million liters withdrawn. We are addressing situation downstream regulator. So that is what you see right there. That's Vanguard today.
Well, let's turn our attention to...
What happened to Mr. and Mrs.?
Bad fuel.
They're trying to get fuel this morning.
Bad fuel had my throat.
This is unfair.
Okay. We'll look into that.
Another committee.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And then a white paper.
Take a look at The Guardian this morning. Well, it calls it dirty fuel. Bad fuel, now dirty fuel. Just to send the message home. And it's another angle to this. Litigations loom over damaged vehicles. Scarcity to end weekend. Okay. We'll take a look at the riders. NNPC asks trading firms for emergency petrol supplies as FG battles to restore order. Queues spread across Nigeria. Black marketers sell at 250 naira per litre in Abuja. Also to say they have sort of removed their own subsidy for the black marketers, that is. And, you know, the challenge with black marketers sometimes is you're not even sure the quality of the petrol you're buying from them. So
That's why it's black. The market is black.
there you go. There you go. More riders. NMDPRA, that's the Midstream and Downstream Authority. NNPC identifies supplier of adulterated fuel to sanction misdeed. Ipman blames NNPC, admits payment of 36 billion naira backlog. You see many vehicles to develop engine drivability problems. Experts warn why fleet owners, companies, motorists must take legal actions. And you can imagine.
I was just thinking about that. So what's going to happen to the people whose vehicles got damaged as a result? And I mean all kinds of vehicles. Yeah. I think our reporter, you know, was it our reporter, some video I saw, you know,
and this,
even motorcycles. That's the question that I was going to ask. What's going to happen?
Is this covered by insurance?
How are they going to be compensated? You know, is there going to be a suing?
Imagine just going to buy 5,000 naira fuel and you come back with a what? How much is an engine now, depending on the car you're buying?
Oh, dear.
Oh, goodness.
It's unthinkable.
It is a very sad one. And, you know, we need to get to the root of this because it appears as though no one is taking the blame.
And talking about the root of it, I still maintain the same question I asked yesterday morning. Who in the universe passed it? Isn't it imported? Was it made at home?
Fantastic questions. You know, keep your gunpowder dry.
Yeah, just calm down.
Well, it's not just, you know, vehicle owners and those who need to use petrol that are stranded or have been stranded. You see this one under the big picture. Nigerians, telcos, government agencies stranded as NIMSI glitch enters 8th day. So a lot of things to contend with. 8th, actually. Lots of things to contend with there.
You
see,
this, this little thing we talk about, the NIMSI glitch, you have no idea how far-reaching it is in the polity.
Does NIMSI know themselves?
So they put out a statement saying that, you know, let's keep our gunpowder dry on that one as well. Yeah. But that's The Guardian.
The Nigerian News Direct has the same story on its front page. Adulterated PMS. Scarcity worsens as NNPC replaces stock in 8 days. That's the lead story of the Nigerian News Direct this morning. And check out the riders. Loses 14.5 billion naira on 50,000 metric tons of spec cargo. As FG threatens sanction, FG threatens to sanction NNPC importer. Okay, you talked about importers the other time, Chamberlain, so I guess that's it. But this is importer, not importers. We'll find out more later. Isolates adulterated fuel. All of that you'll find on page 23 of the Nigerian News Direct this morning. Margaret.
Well, Daily Trust has this headline for you. Adulterated petrol unsettles motorists. NNPC moves to withdraw 16.5 billion naira worth of fuel. Marketers halt sales to seek compensation. Higher methanol in PMS isolated case withdrawn. That's from the regulatory authority. Page 4 will give you all of the details. I know that now we all feel this trepidation. Maybe you should buy in a jerry can first to see the color of the petrol you're putting in your car before you end up with a car that's broken down and you can't move. Take a look at this other one. It's another very disturbing headline, and it's been affecting a lot of transactions also. Nigeria's data security compromised as NIMS's portal remains comatose. Galaxy backbone contradicts Commission's claims. That story is on page 20 for you. EFCC quizzes NERSL officials, others over wheat project scandal. Fresh row as Kano APC peace move collapses. That's also on the front page for you. You have a number of stories on the side here. Delayed corruption cases. Stop blaming judiciary. CJN tackles Malami. A very surprising press statement came out from the office of the CJN yesterday. I never saw a more strongly worded defense of the judiciary coming from the CJN's office. And look at this, just in case you're interested in this. Julius Berger diversifies into agriculture. We all know what Julius Berger does. But now it looks like they're about to take on agriculture to process cashew. It's on page 22 of the paper. Let's leave it there for Daily Trust.
Nigerian Tribune next. ASUU insists on strike. Says FG dribbling us. There you go. So, you know, you think about so many other things as a result of this headline alone and its potential, if actualized. But above that one, Senate approves 6 new law schools in 6 geopolitical zones. This went on for a while, and they thought, shouldn't you just... But now, this is what it is. That's Tribune today.
Well, I'm spoiled for choice, really. But let's see. Which one do we take a look at? New Telegraph? Let's switch to politics. And this one is on 2023 presidency. It says PDP hierarchy mounts pressure on Atiku to drop ambition. So that's what you have on the front page of the New Telegraph this morning. Of course, there's something on NSAR's victims receiving 11 billion naira insurance claims. That's also another story. And, well, referencing the CJN's statement saying judiciary can't be blamed, CJN tells AGF. So I don't know. So how do we resolve this? Because clearly there is a challenge, and the CJN has given the reasons. I hope the executive will take it up and solve this. But that's New Telegraph.
Leadership newspaper says on its front page, Nigeria's problems have defied cosmetic solutions. That's ascribed to IBB. Stories on page 4 says leadership must be occupied by competent, visionary individuals. We referenced this a little earlier. Nigeria must be rescued from wrong drivers. Ascribed to El Buba. New movement emerges, backs southern presidency. What does that mean? Check the details on page 4. Orosanye reports, committee suspends creation of agencies. Amid other stories. That's the leadership newspaper today.
Yeah, so that ends it with a look at some of the dailies here today. We will be back, and then we'll talk about this fuel matter. Tell us what you think about it, but don't go away while it is.
Quite an unusual sight, last seen in the first quarter of 2021. Lagos residents woke up to have a taste of what has been on for some days in Abuja: queues and frenetic efforts to buy petrol. The story, however, is not the same across Lagos metropolis. So while some fuel stations have lines of vehicles waiting to be filled, at other locations, it's as good as a regular day. Drive in and be filled. Of course, situations like this aggravates motorists who hate to recall experiences of the past.
I wonder why we have this kind of things recurring. For about 2 years now, it's been fine. Not had issues about fuel. All of a sudden, we heard yesterday in Abuja, on the island, that now it's come to Lagos. Frankly, I'm worried.
Nobody's addressing, no formal statement from anybody. We just cannot get fuel. We cannot go about with our daily activities. I'm supposed to be at work right now. I cannot work. I have to look for fuel up and down.
The situation in Lagos is nowhere compared to that of the nation's capital, Abuja. Long queues of vehicles waiting for fuel at petrol stations. This has been the situation for the past few weeks and counting. The situation, which has gone unabated, calls for concerns as some motorists ask the relevant authorities to address the situation.
So if it is that they want to increase the pump price, let us know. Let's just have a definite, full stop to this.
For now, all eyes are on the regulatory agencies in the downstream sector. Olu Phillips, Channels Television News.
But I'm sure you've experienced it, or at least you felt some of the anxiety. We have in our studios this morning people who can tell us what exactly could be going on in that particular sector. We expect that there will be some relief soon, but in the meantime, what is the problem and how can we resolve it? We have with us Mr. Billy Gillis Harry, who is the National President, Petrol, that's the Petroleum Products Retail Outlets Owners Association of Nigeria. You're welcome to Sunrise Daily this morning.
Thank you. Good morning, Martha.
Good morning. We also have with us Mr. Chinedu Okoronkwo, who is the president of IPMAN. You're welcome to Sunrise Daily this morning.
Thank you, Martha, for having me.
So let me start with you, Mr. Okoronkwo. What precisely is the issue? You had the independent marketers, is that correct?
Very well.
In Abuja, it's been a different kettle of fish. We've been seeing the queues. I don't know if you live in Abuja or you live in Lagos, or you operate out of Abuja or Lagos. Where do you operate from,
I operate from Abuja here.
So I'm sure you've been seeing the queues
very well.
here in the FCT. And people have been asking, what precisely has been the matter, at least first here in the FCT?
I think the matter is so open that everybody knows what has happened in the system. Off-spec petroleum was brought in, and people began to see some of the damages going on, and the relevant authorities have also come up plainly to say, yes, this is what has happened. But in that system, any disruption of maybe 2 or 3 days can escalate the issue up to 1 week. That is what we're suffering. But I can tell you for free that that product has also been removed from the market, but the repos already, cost is still there. And I believe in that before the end of this week, everything should normalize. There is nothing to worry about.
Did IPMAN know that before now?
We did directly with the product. So when it happened, we also alerted relevant agencies of government. And they went into action and discovered what has happened. And they have removed that petroleum, that contaminated one now. The new ones are coming. You can also see that some stations have started selling, but the problem already caused is humongous and is still there.
So that already happened. It seemed that the people in Abuja already heard before the people in Lagos, because while Abuja was already feeling the pinch of petrol scarcity, or some people say it was hoarding, I'm not sure which one it was, but we saw the queues. While they're already feeling the pinch, Lagos was still experiencing normal supplies and many other parts of the country. What was responsible for Abuja feeling the pinch first?
Well, it all depends. Even in Port Harcourt, it was felt. When I traveled last week, we discovered that some areas have that problem. So it's not only about Abuja. in everywhere, but the whole idea is that Abuja, because being the capital territory, everybody here will always feel something very, very hard when it happens. So it wasn't like it was only for Abuja. Those who collected the product elsewhere also had similar problem. Even my tanker had it was loaded, and the driver said, this is what they are saying. I said, okay, pack and let us see how we can get it out. And it was decanted back to the tank farm, So it's not something only Abuja felt, the whole nation felt it. But I can tell you for sure, for free, that that problem has been solved. But the ripple already is there. So believing that before the end of the week, it should be cleared.
How big a problem, and that is if this was the same problem for retail outlet owners, how big a problem was this for you?
Well, it's quite a big problem. The challenges that are felt by any of the marketing associations, whether it's Moman, Dapman, Ipman, is felt by the retail outlets, because the retail outlets, are part and parcel of the entire, petroleum downstream marketing chain. We are the last mile. We are the most critical last mile in the chain. So we feel it the most. Because at the retail outlets, that's where the difficulty is felt. The users are dealing with the retail outlets, and that is where they will start to feel the terrible, confusion that is already on.
Did you get to know before these products were supplied to you? Or was it after the product? Excuse me, I do not know if some of your members experienced this bad petrol being supplied to them before they eventually realized that this is what has happened. And if that is what has happened, I mean, assuming they were supplied this adulterated fuel, did they add it to what they already had in stock? Or, how big an impact was it for them?
Well, it was a very big impact on every retail outlet that has product. Because the moment you take 45,000 liters of petroleum product and you decant it into your storage tank, obviously it's going to affect whatever that has been there. But the good news with us was that once we discovered this on the 2nd of February, we started trying to investigate what the issues were. And we got to find out that out of just a simple error, of, transportation and maybe chemical, balance, we have a product that can easily be, oxidized. And by that action, it starts to, bring different kinds of product. Otherwise, the testing that was done on the product initially showed that it was pure petrol, it was pure PMS. But when you expose it, that's when it started having those difficulties. So, of course, people will buy it without knowing it. But once our members, got to know that that was a problem, our instruction to all retail outlets is, hold on, let us get back to the depots to find out. And from the depots, we found out that, there was a common problem that's happening in Lagos, Abuja, Port Harcourt, Calabar, Katsina, Benin, everywhere has the same problem. So long as that product was lifted from that particular stock. So it's not something we knew before. It's something that we knew after the fact.
2nd of February was the day you said you discovered.
Well, that's when the outcry became very loud, because vehicles that had loaded from our retail outlets were already starting to complain. Vehicles were getting bad. They're trying to get our members arrested. And of course, we have to immediately come into the scene to know exactly what the issues were. So that is just what it is. But today, we can see that the authorities have accepted exactly and explained to the public what has happened. So these products that had this challenge, they are being isolated, and we hope that that's going to be very successful. Of course, that's what Petrol is doing. That's what I believe Ipman will do. That's what I believe Moman will do. That's what even Dapman will do. Try to assist the authorities to make sure that that contaminated petroleum product don't go back into the market. And everybody is working hands on deck, NMPC, PPMC, the authority, the associations, we're all working to make sure that Nigeria is up and running again.
Okay. Well, there's talk that this has been withdrawn, that it has been withdrawn from the market.
Yes.
I just heard you say that all of the associations are working to help the authorities. Is it withdraw the petrol or ensure it doesn't come back? Which one?
No. Once the product has been detected, and the authorities have also called our attention to say, hey, this is compromised product, isolate it. Of course, we have to isolate it immediately. So if we have 3 tanks, for instance, and the products are in one, then that tank must not sell again. The other ones will continue to sell. So what we are doing is, of course, once you have put in the product, it will contaminate. So what do? We try to look out for how we can, sieve the product and isolate those particular compartments that have problem, because that's what the authorities have requested us to do, and that's what we're doing. And that will go a long way to
sieve
solve
the product.
Well, if there is, bad fuel in one particular compartment, you don't have to discharge it again.
Okay, to seal it.
You just have to keep it.
Okay.
So you don't, because
what I heard is that it has been withdrawn. What I imagined is that this petrol will now have to be, is it taken away from the retail outlets back to the depot where it was, gotten from, and then perhaps, I don't know whether there'll be onward transmission to, or whatever it is that the NNPC would like to do with it then. But well, it doesn't look like that is the process.
Well, the process is going to come. The first thing is the most critical. There is difficulty. Isolate that contaminated product, don't sell it again.
Okay.
So that is solution enough. Now, thereafter, the next steps will follow. Steps that will follow will simply be how we can be able to mitigate the difficulty by ensuring that the next levels of product that is coming out are all pure petrol, PMS. So that is not going to happen like the Imam president has said. There is no time you can say that's going to happen in 2 days. It has taken some time. This product has been, discharged into our retail outlet storage tanks. It has to be brought. It has to be brought out. So that in itself is a process. So, but what the government has done today is what any responsible authority should do. And for us as an association, we give kudos to them that I don't think that anybody intentionally imported pop fuel into the country. It must be just an accident of fate. So if it has happened and the authorities have accepted that, look, this is something that's wrong, and already instructions have been given to isolate, we must isolate.
Let me flip this to Lagos. I know my colleagues have questions for you.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. Well, gentlemen, we'd like you to listen to this comments from the NMDPRA, because we'd like you to shed some light on it for us. Just listen.
Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority wishes to inform the general public that limited quantity of petroleum product, PMS, commonly known as petrol, with methanol quantity above Nigerian specification, was discovered in the supply chain. Methanol is a regular additive in petrol and usually blended to acceptable quantity. To ensure vehicular and equipment safety, the limited quantity of the impacted products has been isolated and withdrawn from the market, including those loaded in trucks. Our technical team, in conjunction with NNPC and other industry stakeholders, will continue to monitor and ensure quality products are adequately supplied and distributed nationwide. So there is no need to panic. The source supplier has been identified, and further commercial and appropriate actions shall be taken by the authority as well as the NNPC. The NNPC Limited and all marketing companies have been directed by the authority to sustain sufficient distribution of petroleum products in all retail outlets nationwide to avoid any scarcity. Meanwhile, the NNPC has intensified effort at increasing the supply of petroleum products into the market in order to bridge any unforeseen supply gap.
Well, gentlemen, I'm sure the stakeholders in that sector, including yourselves, have had several meetings about some of these matters. Perhaps you still have more meetings. But if I could ask you, Mr. Okoronkwo, could you tell us, when he says that the sole supplier has been identified, who is this sole supplier? Can you tell us?
Thank you. I think this should be their internal problem. For us in Ipman, we don't know who the supplier is. Our own is to, maybe if the ship comes in, take the product from the vessel to tank farm, those who have tank farm, and those who are buying from the tank farm will not take to their filling station. It should be their internal problem. And now that they have been able to discover who the culprit is, I think it's simple. But one thing Nigeria would like to know, who is this culprit? For us, we don't know who the culprit is.
So, but who did your shipment come from, the one you received?
We have one single source of getting this product, an NPC. And they have throughput with many tank farms, So by the time you pay through online, you'll be designated to tank farm where to load. And I believe that is what it is.
So help us understand this, really. So the NNPC is a sole importer of this product, right? And then it is taken to tank farms, and then people buy from there to take to their filling stations. How is petrol contaminated? At what point? Because we have regulatory agencies that are meant to check the quality of this product. So at what points really is, because you expect that whatever comes into the country, the methanol level should be tested. So is it what was brought in, or what was taken to the tank farm, or maybe during trucking? Where exactly did we have this challenge?
Very simple. From the statement from the Mr. Farouk, the supplier of an NPC, which means it should be from the vessel that brought it. It's simple. The chain of bringing in I think they have contractors that may be bringing product for them to now distribute. Is very, very simple. It's from the vessel that brought it in, and that is why it was easy for them to identify who the culprit is. I believe that is what has happened.
Well, Mr. Okoronkwo, allow me to assume that at least you will know what the process is. I mean, you've just given us a simple, idea of who does, how it comes into the country. But how about the process of step by step from vessel to who, before it gets to the tank farms, before it gets to you?
It's simple. In our system, the independent market, that will have two. Either you are a member of Ipman or MOMAN. If you have your money, you could be given what they call offshore. That is from the vessel you can be allocated to go and pick. Those who don't have the money can also wait at the depots that brought this product into their tank farm. So that is the chain. But from what Mr. Farouk have said, it's very, very simple that it was from their supplier, maybe the vessel that brought it in, must have been the one that have contaminated this product. And it's simple. When it is from that is why you have almost everywhere, maybe those picking from Port Harcourt, Calabar, from the same vessel will have the same problem. I think that is what has happened.
The question that I'm asking is, does it go through any regulatory agency, any standards organization of Nigeria, any agency of government that tests for level or quality of these things before getting to you or to the marketers who dispense to Nigerians?
Apparently that is correct. Before the advent of this regulatory agency, we have DPR, whose duty was to test products coming in, even at the tank farm. They will test it and know what is there. I think it's not that you can't blend product with ethanol, but I think what has happened, maybe they overdid it, which, of course, they've been able to locate who has done it. And we'll take it from there.
So when you say they overdid it, who are the they that did this?
The supplier.
Okay.
They have identified who the supplier is. So the question now is for us to know who has done this to this nation. As simple as that.
Okay, so but do we have a standard of fuel that this country requires? And what is the standard?
We have standard. I think they have flashpoints for all the products. That is why when they want to bring, they will tell you an NPC specification. An NPC have their standard. I don't have the figure here, but if you Google their website, you will see an NPC spec. So when you don't bring something within that spec, which means it's out of it, they have their standard. It's everywhere. You can, Google an NPC standard of product, ASUU, PMS, and even DPK.
Okay, so could you tell us, do you know the amount of, the quantity of fuel that was brought in and contaminated this particular incident?
I think that should be the internal data. For us, they are saying about 100 million liters. We don't have that data. But for those who have taken this product and they have asked to stop whatever thing they are doing with it, like Farouk have said, it's easily tracked now. Even those filling stations, from what Billy said and what we are doing, please don't send again, keep it. Let's see how to evacuate and let us get feedbacks on those who have problem with their vehicle and everything.
We asked this because it's not the first time that this country is witnessing bad fuel being supplied. And then you just ask yourself, look, there are supposed to be agencies, the standards which you spoke about, and then if you have 100 million liters, for crying out loud, nobody checks it to be sure that it meets the country standard, it gets to the country, gets to suppliers, gets to end users, before they can find out that it is even bad and then they recall it. There's really so much going on. But at what point do they check if it meets our standard? Is it when it lands our shores here or before it departs from where it's coming from?
Before the vessel will leave, there must be this bill of lading, putting all the specifications. Those people can lie to the NPC, look, this is what we have, and they will believe it on face value. But eventually when the thing comes here, they're supposed to also check. That is their duty. And I believe that is why they could easily dictate where this thing has happened from. Yes.
But, in the statement from the NMDPRA that we just listened to, the major points that talked about who might be responsible for this and what will be done was the part where he said the source supplier has been identified and further commercial and appropriate action shall be taken by the authority and the NMPC. But from what you have said, from that process, the authority, as it were, it used to be DPR, has a role to also test and ensure that we're getting the right kind of product. And that ball was dropped clearly. So should we be hearing perhaps a punitive effect or punitive action on...
I'm not sure they can hear you.
Okay, I'm not sure you can hear me, Mr. Koronko.
Okay, so the thing we're trying to put across is the processes, because if they say they've identified the source supplier, isn't it only one supplier that we have? So in other words, they should have said, well, this came from who? The NMPC, and so certain measures are being taken. Isn't that how it should have gone?
If you can hear me,
You have to recall it, because at a time, you people went off.
Yes. You'll have to repeat the question. I was trying to pass the message across that we had a little audio challenge here in Abuja. So please, if Kayode and Chairman would like to repeat the questions.
Right. So let me go first. My question is simple. The statement we heard from the NNDPRA just talked about the supplier who is at fault, as it were, but does not talk about our own regulatory agency that may have dropped the ball in, testing and ensuring that the product meets the standard. So shouldn't we be talking about that as well? Because, hey, the supplier can bring in anything, but it is our duty, our responsibility to ensure that whatever comes in meets that standard. Shouldn't that also be the point here?
Well, I think at this point in time, we don't need to blame the agency too much, because from the documentation, maybe they might even bring sample. Some of the compartments might not be that bad. So, but now they have also, in their own investigation, discovered, look, this is where this thing is coming from. For me, it's for them to let the whole world know who has done this. I think the proper thing to do is for them to get to the root, apportion blame where this blame should be, because a lot of people are suffering. Even the whole situation. When I was just coming to your studio here, I saw a lot of queues. I'm not happy, and nobody should be happy about it. It's not the way business should be done, in a manner that everybody will benefit.
Okay.
Somebody can do his manifest, look at what we have, even bring some sample from even that vessel, and believing that is it. It could go that bad.
All right, let me bring in Dr. Gillis Harry on this. Mr. Korenko, pardon me, we kept him waiting for a while. Mr. Harry, does retail owners do they test some of these products before you begin to dispense upon receipt?
Well, there are always standards to make sure that petroleum products received from every source means the PPMC depots and the private depots are already tested. We have the quality certification
from association, your members,
downstream authority. So that should suffice at all times to get us to where we need to go. However,
I'm talking about your members,
where, and I've said this earlier.
Can you hear me, Mr. Harry? I mean, your members, before retailing, do they test them?
Well, we will already rely on the certificate of quality that is issued by the authority at any of the depots, because we always will have the certificate of authority, quality, with us when we buy a product, and which, by the way, is what we are now checking to enforce with our petroleum product passport technology that we are trying to introduce into the system and across the country in all retail outlets.
We had a conversation, you talked about this technology, and in fact, the technology was meant to also help us know how much petrol we consume on a daily basis in Nigeria, so a lot of prospects. But did you see this coming? Was that why you actually had to find a way to introduce this thing? Because you thought, wait a minute, the certificate of quality we get from the government agencies might not actually be accurate, might not show the real picture. So let's find a way to also do this. Is that something you've noticed over time?
No. We have absolute trust in the certificate of quality issued by the former DPR, that's today the midstream and downstream authority. And as far as we know, that quality certification is adequate. The only thing that we introduced with that quality certification is to digitize it and make it to be available on the petroleum product passport. So it only helps to reduce the volume of paper that you carry along, because you have to carry your way bills, you have to carry the certificate of quality and all of that. But we did that because we have issues of adulterated, mostly diesel products, not PMS. And we were concerned that we are consuming much more diesel than we are selling, because the retail outlets are selling diesel which they buy from depots that are approved to import the diesel. And why will we be spending, burning so much diesel while we are selling so less? That was the very beginning of our concern. And of course, later on, we found out that this was going to assist in ensuring that it helps the government to mitigate, crude oil theft and adulterated products, and also smuggling of petroleum products out of Nigeria. So long as this technology is effectively used and is accepted nationwide.
Okay, well, Mr. Billis Harris, you heard Mr. Okoronkwo say the other time that there will be need to evacuate the bad fuel from circulation and then get the new ones in. On the one hand, this bad fuel is in the reservoirs of petroleum, dispensers such as your organization's members and all of that. How is that evacuation going to happen? And how long do you think this reversal will take before we come back to normal?
Well, let me bring a good news to you. You've heard Mr. Farouk, clearly define what the problem is and what the direction of finding solutions will be, and I do applaud that. Yes, it's very important that we should do everything possible to unveil whoever that is the culprit, because there are commercial consequences. There are image and integrity consequences. And it's very important that whoever that is involved in this is made to ensure that everybody involved in the system is adequately recompensated for.
Sorry.
Well, we have already started.
Can I just ask? Pardon me, just a minute.
To do that before this announcement yesterday.
Do we have more than one importer at the moment?
Well, for PMS, you've heard both the major marketers and independent marketers, and even us, Petrol, tell you that there is only one source for importing petroleum product that is known as PMS. It's only the NNPC.
Yeah, so that's where it is.
Diesel, a few other people bring in other products, because they are deregulated.
All right, if this is happening,
is only imported by NNPC.
Now, if this amount of negligence is going on when there's just one importer, shouldn't we be worried if we deregulate and several people are importing products? How will they check if they can't meet up with the standards now?
Well, as far as we are concerned, as a responsible and patriotic organization, we do believe that there's the need for all of us to be proactive in ensuring that our economy is stable. Petroleum product consumption, distribution is a very critical point in being a catalyst to grow the economy by all standards. So if there are 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 importers of petroleum product, we have a common regulator. That's the authority. And then everybody has access to be able to bring product. You can't bring product from anywhere you're bringing without it being tested. And also the effort by the authority will be made to be more robust. So I don't think that allowing for the regulations and then allowing for other companies to import will be anything wrong for the country. It will help the country because this is just one error. I mean, we've never had this level of difficulty prior to now. So we don't have to, break our balls for that. What I have said as president of Petrol is there should be no panic buying. The queues can reduce because there is fuel that will be sold from the genuine fuel that's coming. So really, it's a bad situation that we all should put hands and make sure that we repair it.
Okay, before I take this to Mark, Mr. Okoronkwo, just help us understand this, really. So there are fuel queues across states in the country, there's scarcity as well. What exactly is responsible for this? Because this is largely being blamed on the bad fuel, but there's also the concerns, the fears that subsidy might be removed in February. So there are reports that people are hoarding, that there's been the concern about panic buying, there's concern about inadequate supply, and then, of course, you add this bad fuel to it. So what exactly is causing the fuels? Because this bad fuel question just came up recently, and we've seen queues in Abuja way before that. So what exactly is causing the scarcity?
Well, I'll give it the best shot. I'll give it a good try, and
that's for Mr. Okoronko, actually.
Put you right in.
Dr. Kilisari, just a moment.
Thank you. Well, prior to the government coming out with their position that, look, we have to put this on hold, the subsidy removal, there could be some thinking and inkling of people. Maybe there could be price removal and things like that. So we might not 100% remove that. But eventually, when government now came out with their position, look, we are now going to suspend this thing for another 18 months. At that point in time, government have given out their, and they can't be going forth and back in this direction. So there was no need for anybody to begin to hoard, even though, remember, it takes a lot of money to do this business. You are hoarding. The people, the banks where you have collected this money, how do you pay them? Hoard for what? With the mega profit we are getting, I tell you, it's a business that everybody is excruciating going through. So the question of hoarding stopped immediately when government came out with that policy. Now, coming out from that policy, this issue of bad fuel came into, resurfaced. Is a system that I believe, like I've said earlier, with this position of Mr. Farouk and what we in Ipman have seen, new fuel, good fuel, have started coming in. So if you look at some filling stations, you will also see that they are selling. But a lot of them have not gotten this new fuel, which we believe before the end of this week, give or take, everything should clear.
Well, there'll be the question of confidence returning to consumers. There'll still be those who will be afraid. Maybe they've only just heard the news. Yeah, and I think, bad news spreads like wildfire.
That's correct.
There'll be those who say, look, I'm not sure the kind of petrol. I don't want to go and queue, and then I finish getting to the front, and what is sold to me is bad fuel.
Yes.
How do you hope to reinstate the confidence of consumers?
Oh, very simple. If you don't want to buy now, and you have seen people buying and they're not having problem, definitely you will.
Maybe the problem will come later.
No, it will not.
Do you have any addition to that?
Well, the reality is that I was going to say exactly what Mr. Koroko has said. There's no reason for anybody to hoard petroleum products today. The issue is that we just came into this situation coming out from the expectations of petroleum product being deregulated and so on and so forth. But right now, with the policy of government saying, look, we're reversing ourselves on this, and subsidy is not going to be removed. We're keeping it on hold for 18 months. There shouldn't be any reason for anybody to sell. The margin that we have as profit is so minimal that nobody would like to keep petroleum products sitting in his tank for more than necessary.
Yeah, I was talking about confidence on the part of the consumers.
Oh, okay. Well, at the end of the day, what's going to happen is simple. If I go to buy petroleum products with my car as a retail outlet owner and I'm driving, I'll put confidence back in you. The government has not come out to tell us any story that's not correct. They've told us the problem is that methanol got mixed above the approved quantity for Nigeria. So it's very clear.
Yes, damage already done. Will anybody be suing anybody?
Well, already there are people suing. There are people suing people.
It's something that we will aggregate and see how we work with the agency of government to see how to ameliorate this problem.
That's exactly what.
So you do expect that there will be some compensation?
There should be, because the customer is always a king. If buying fuel from any filling station causes any damage, even without this thing, maybe water, when you come, you'll be compensated. Now it's like a Nigerian problem. It's for us now to have our data, all the state and everything, compile them and see how we can interface with these agencies of government.
Okay, we'll see how it goes in the coming days. We have to thank you, gentlemen, for coming on Sunrise Daily this morning. Mr. Billy Gillis-Harry is the National President of Petroleum Products Retail Outlets Owners Association of Nigeria. Petron is a mouthful. Thank you for coming on Sunrise Daily this morning. And we also had Mr. Chinedu Okoronkwo, who is the President of Ipman. Thank you so much for coming on, sir.
Thank you, for having us.
Well, we'll take a break at this point, and we'll be back shortly with another topic. Please stay tuned.
Our union has continued to bring up issues of concern about the governance of our universities because it forms part of our professional and moral responsibility, and we will not stop doing that. We are perplexed and disappointed that the federal government and the state governments are not responding to our consistent appeal for reason to bring about genuine transformation driven by highly motivated human capital in the education sector, particularly the university system. Embarking on strike is not in our character, nor is it in our nature. However, our union should not be pushed to the wall. Our union will not shy away from its responsibility if that entails even going on strike. But like we say, we go on strike as a last resort. We are in a position now where the government is not doing the needful, where we are being provoked to go on strike. And we want to appeal to you, members of the press. We want to appeal to fellow Nigerians. We want to appeal to all stakeholders in the educational system and this Nigerian enterprise to appeal and prevail on the Nigerian government to do the needful and don't force us to go on strike. Because if we are forced to go on strike this time, it will be the mother of all strike. Thank you very much. Solidarity forever.
Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. For the union makes us strong.
Well, yes, Professor Emmanuel Osodeke joins us. He's the president of the Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASUU, to shed some light on the current developments. Good morning. Thank you for joining us on the program today.
Good morning, and thank you very much.
Yeah, before we get into that meeting and what transpired, but we also remember that just a couple of days ago, the president did say to ASUU, please don't go on strike. Give us some time. We will sort this out. What happened to that plea? Did ASUU just disregard that completely?
Definitely no. If the president had given an appeal almost 2 weeks ago, one would have expected and he believed that this system, there is a problem in the system, and that they should have started doing something, at least, not if not inviting not to a meeting or anything. But nothing happens since then, which is the usual. And that is why our members are agitated. One would have expected this year had been on since 2009. An agreement was signed in 2020 MOA. I will call off a strike. Until now, nothing significant has happened. So one would expect that if you have given such a plea and handed over this responsibility to 3 of your ministers and the chief of staff, that by now would have begun to see some action that indicate that the plea is not just one of the things we've been seeing in the past, and nothing happened. One would have expected that by now there have been some action on some of the issues. Let me give you an example. The issue of decisional panel that started a year ago, the report is not out. I think we should have seen some action that indicate that that plea is really genuine.
Did ASUU, but the NEC or ASUU generally, did they give a timeline, an expiration to that plea, saying, well, yes, you might have appealed to us to hold on, but if by 1 week or 2 weeks we don't see anything, we will just go ahead with business as usual? Is that what happened?
The plea you are talking about is in the papers. We would expect that they would have reached to us. The one used on the press, please, they should have reached out to us. Is it difficult to reach out to us? Is it difficult for a minister to reach out to us? Is it difficult for the chief of staff to reach out to us? Is it difficult for the secretary of fragment to reach out to us? What we are seeing in the newspapers and radio, nobody has reached out to us since then. We show that it's just one of those pleas you see in the system, Nigerian system. And besides, this our mobilization started even before those pleas.
And I know, Prof, you're referring to that statement the president made specifically about the chief of staff and minister of labor during that visit by the leaders to him. But before now, had there been any conversation, especially because the president was particular chief of staff, so perhaps he was saying he had directed them in the past. Had there been any of such in the past?
The cause of this our struggle since 2020 and now 2017 and now, we have met with virtually all of them. We met with the president in 2020. In May, we met with the president. I also gave the directive to them, to the minister, to the minister. We met with the Senate president in 2020. I promised to intercede. We met with the Speaker of the House of Representatives in 2021. He promised they did everything. We have met with the Minister of Labor so many times. We have met with the Minister of Education. So what else do you want us to do? If we have met all these strata, and then in November last year, we're going to take action, and the group, the NIREC, Nigerian Territorial Council, interceded, and we gave them that honor because these are the two, this is the leadership of the two major religious groups in Nigeria, and we give them the honor. And to thank them, to also show they have done well, they will have two meetings with them, which means they are interested. But those they are interceding with have done nothing.
Well, in the president's words, Prof, he said that several payments have been made over the last 6 months, addressing several issues raised.
Should we allow this?
Regarding the payments, I just wanted to be clear on that. When he said several payments had been made over the past 6 months, addressing several issues, to what extent have those payments solved the issues? Because for the president, it sounded as though he was saying, we have tried to an extent.
Let me, in the past 2 years or so, one of the 30 billion naira to all Nigerian universities as a sign of commitment to implementing an agreement. Not the implementation, it's a sign of commitment to implement an agreement. Another agreement that on a yearly basis, the federal government will release 220 billion naira to the Nigerian university system for a period of 5 years. So what they did, that 30 billion is a sign that they will implement it. It's not the actual implementation. If you recall, the last time up to 200 billion were released was during President Jonathan, in 2014. So since then, we have not had that. So that is that. Two, they also released 21.127 billion as EAA, in academic allowance, which is for them is a sign of indicating that that allowance, instead of agitating for what we are doing, should be part of the salary. When we look at this year's budget, with a promise, it's not here in this year's budget. So those are the two payments that they have done in the recent times, which are just signs of implementing an agreement, not implementation of the agreement. You can check our MOA, it's well stated there.
So the meetings have not yielded much fruit. The payments have not also yielded as much fruit. How much does the federal government need to throw at this problem before it goes away? Because clearly money is a major part of this.
Thank you very much. In 2009, let me give you a little background. In 2009, we had an agreement with government. At that agreement, we were able to arrive at what government we need to fund the Nigerian university system. But the government did not believe in it and set up a panel known as Need Assessment Report Panel. That panel went around all the public universities, evaluated them, and came out with a report, which is still there with the government. And in that report, that committee recommended that government should release the sum of 1.3 trillion naira to the Nigerian university to bring them up to date, so that our children will not start fleeing from the country, our lecturers will not start running away, we can attract lecturers from other parts of the world, and our students will properly train. Then we met with the President Goodluck Jonathan then, and we spread that 1.3 trillion over 6 years. They will release 200 billion in 2014, and then subsequently on a yearly basis, they repeat 220 billion. It's only that first one that was released. So, but now, even if you release that bulk money, because of the exchange rate depreciation, it will not even solve the problem. We are saying, but implement that. Because when you do that, you see a change in the system. As I speak to you now, if you had recently, the NUC indicated that we have just 100,000 lecturers in all our universities, public, private, state, and federal universities, which is abysmally low if you compare to the student population. So that is the problem. Why are we having that? Because the best brain are leaving. You are paying somebody $700 a month, a lecturer in Nigeria, a professor, a world-renowned professor, less than $700 a month. Meanwhile, you could go to somewhere else and get $5,000 a month. So that is the crisis that's going to face this notion if we don't go ahead and implement that agreement, and the agreement we have just arrived at recently that government refused to do nothing.
Well, Prof, perhaps by way of emphasis, what, in your opinion, are the implications of government having not abided by its own decision of 2009 and the same thing subsists until now? What are the immediate implications and the mid-term or long-term implications?
Let me tell you the immediate implication that we are all suffering presently. Let me ask you this question. In the 60s, 70s, and 80s, did you hear of a building collapsing in Nigeria? The answer is no. Today, there is no week a building does not collapse in Nigeria. And what is the implication? Our students pass through faculty of engineering, structural engineering. There are no facility to teach them the practical component of their job, and they are allowed to go into the system with a degree. Now, such a person had the structural engineering of a ministry or somewhere who have no idea about practicals, and the building are consulted and they collapse. That is one major critical thing that we don't think about. The same thing is happening in the medicine. One of our renowned professor of medicine had an inaugural lecture recently, and he said medical students have no access to cadaver, which means they have no access, and you are training them and pushing them into the system. Imagine the implications. So those are some of the implications. Then it is also happening in other areas. Today, our road is constructed today, in 2 days it's gone. Because the person who is inspecting us knows little or nothing. Those are the immediate implications that we will look at. On the future is this. We're already having it. When I was a student in a state university, in my department, we have lecturers from 4 different countries. Sierra Leone, Nigeria, Sri Lanka then, and Portugal in one department. Today, there is no university in this country you have up to 10 foreign lecturers. University universality. It's not just about a simple place. Then another, Nigeria have forced us into the so-called IPPIS, you are aware of it, that have been reported to be fraudulent. Today, lecturers don't know what they are going to earn at the end of any month. We don't know. Nobody. They pay you what they like. Two, a vice chancellor cannot discipline a staff because you discipline a staff, you go to the ministry, and the next day salaries are being paid. These are the critical issues that we are having, and we are paying huge sum of money to maintain this thing. The money which shall be invested in education, we are asking to give foreign people for how to pay common salary. It's a shame that Nigeria have to go and buy a product from outside this country, or how to pay his staff of the ministry, the staff of anywhere salary. It's a big shame for a country like Nigeria with the best brain, some of the best brain in the world, and we are giving them alternative, and they are playing game with it.
Are you by any chance, Prof, suggesting that government is paying lip service to its own promises or agreements?
Completely. Let me give you an example. Last year, the president went for a program outside the country, and he promised that in 2012, he will increase the budget to education by 50%. And this 2022, it will increase the budget to education by 50%. And by 2023, it will double the budget for education. You look at the budget.
I think it's
the budget of this year increased by just 1%. It decreased. So if we are having such a promise at the international level, and we come back home and we'll implement it. And that's why we don't trust whatever they tell us. If you don't fund your education, what test do you want? That's our crisis.
So, Prof, what do we then make of the comments that came through from government, things late in December, when the Minister of Labour said that the FG had paid 30 billion naira revitalization fund and 22.5 billion earned academic allowance? How do we situate that comment?
You know, I think I have told you this earlier in this program that 30 billion is a sign of government commitment to implement the agreement of 1.3 trillion at the rate of 220 billion per annum. It's a sign of commitment. It's not the implementation. The 21 billion is a sign that they have mainstreamed our earned academic allowance into the salary structure, so that we're going to be talking about it. I get my normal salary is paid along with it. But about this year's budget.
That's what we're asking. Why do you then say it's lip service if they've given that sign?
Structure.
I'm sorry, did you hear the question?
Yes.
You know, when you say that, yes, they've mainstreamed it, and that's a sign, how do you then say it's lip service in the same breath?
You see, if you have mainstreaming in 2020, by 2021, we should have been receiving it. We're in 2022, we should be receiving it. They were not paid. It's not there. So it's also one of those gimmicks. That's the problem. That's the reason our members are agitating. We expect that in 2020, if you have mainstreaming in 2020, by 2021, people will be earning their salary with the earned allowance. By January 2022, we should have been earning our salary with the earned allowance, but it's not there.
Well, Prof, you recently had a lecture-free day, perhaps to sensitize, as the information that went out said. Has there been any reaction or interface with government or any communication from government as a result of that sign, that information you put out by that action?
Officially, we have not got any response, any invitation, nothing from the government officially. ASUU based on official.
Okay.
And as a union, the union of intellectuals, we respond to official invitation.
Okay. Has there been any conversation also from any of the people that had intervened in this issue hitherto?
Yes, we had a meeting with the NIREC, and that's why we said if the government side have been doing their own way, the way NIREC did their own, we will not be having this problem. As soon as they finish, and this, like let me explain to you, the NIREC is headed by the Sultan of Sokoto and the President of Khan. These are people who are very busy, but they find time to call a meeting and call us, and they brief us on what they discuss. We show commitment. But on the other side, we should be in charge of the implementation, which is the government side. And if they know this is really serious, they have no bother to call us. But the interreligious group, with the Sultan coming from Sokoto and the President of Khan coming from Lagos, or they will come to Abuja and discuss with us what they discuss with the president. But on the government side, not a single, we show the degree of commitment. Why the NIREC is committed to solving the problem, those that were directed to go and solve this problem are not interested.
So,
even with the agitation from the universities.
Okay, so hypothetically speaking now, if the Interreligious Council intervenes again, will that shelve this planned or incoming strike?
The NIREC is an intervening body, not implementing. I know if they are the one implementing, we won't have problem. But the implementing body is this government team. So no matter the intervention by NIREC, they are met with the highest person, the president, who has directed a group to solve the problem immediately. And that group is doing nothing. So what will NIREC do? You should go back to the president again? So that's the tragedy of the system.
Right. The president said at that meeting with NIREC that he appeals to ASUU to work with government to find solutions to the problem confronting the nation. And you're aware of this. I mean, the budget deficit, how we're trying to finance our budget, deficit financing essentially. So does ASUU have ideas, really, that can help solve the government's problem in that area? Because if you're saying you need over 1 trillion naira and inflation has come, exchange rate has come, so that's way more than 1 trillion naira. Do you have ideas you have given government to help solve this revenue challenge?
You see, that's what we are saying. In 1992, we had similar situation with the government and the government of Bangladesh. And we said, look, we will help you solve the problem. We say it's very easy. Go to the companies, enact a law, collect 2% of the profit of the company, and use it to fund education as intervention, which is the origin of TED fund. And it's working. In our agreement we have reached with the government in May 2021, we have given them how this budget and the need assessment fund can be implemented. But nobody is looking at that document. It's there. If we implemented that agreement that we reached, and the alternative sources of funding we have given to the government, this issue would have been resolved. But unlike the government of that time, these people, they don't bother to read the document. They just look at it and then they throw it away.
Wasn't that why
your team negotiated?
Wasn't that why they set up TED Fund, based on the document?
That was 1992. 1992. We are in 2022, and we have suggested TED Fund is just on intervention. But we are looking at mainstream funding of education.
Do you agree with those who say, look, if governments for years now have not been able to live up to this, the promises, several MOUs, several agreements, they say that government is broke, and as such, they cannot meet this. Does ASUU buy that?
Definitely no. It's setting a priority. Any day the Nigerian government, whether at the state and federals, make education their priority, will not have this problem. When you look at the countries doing well educationally in the world, they give between 16 and 26% of their budget to education because it's number one. Whether you are a doctor, you are a soldier, you are a journalist, whatever, you must go through the educational system. Therefore, it's number one source of funding. But today, what do you have? We are giving 6% to education. When Obasanjo was the prime minister of the Western region, he was giving between almost 30% to education, and you saw the effect. So when you have a government that don't take education seriously, you have this problem. You know why we are having this problem, and until you solve this problem, it will not change. All those who control our funding, all those who manage the fund, have their children outside Nigerian university system. All of them, whether it's the minister, a governor, or whatever, have all their children outside. You see them when they go to their convocation, hanging around their children and laughing. So they have all their children outside. If they have their children in the Nigerian university system, they will fund the system. And that's why they don't put it their priority. Whether it's at the primary, secondary, and universities. They send their children abroad with our money. And they allow the children of the ordinary Nigerians to suffer in the university without getting good education. So that when their children come back from outside, they get the juicy jobs, NNPC, Central Bank. So that is the problem.
Well,
so until we change that, and we are insisting that the pressmen in Nigeria, we should create a hashtag to tell Nigerian leaders, for you to accept a government position, you must bring your children back home. The hashtag should be titled, Bring Back Your Children. Because when they are in Nigerian university, Nigerian primary school and secondary school, they will fund the system. Now they are not interested because it does not bother them.
But you know, ASUU is actually a very strong pressure group. I mean, ASUU can actually hold the nation to ransom, as it were, because you're in charge of a very vital sector in the country. Now we're inching towards elections, and you know how promises will be made. We'll fix the education sector, we'll do this and do that. For ASUU, in terms of the recruitment process, I'm sure you've learned from the previous, 7 years. What is the thinking now for this coming, election period, the kind of questions to ask leaders? Are you going to be actively involved so that you ensure that whoever is coming in will do right by you?
Our appeal to Nigerian people today, in terms of education, is that when people come to campaign to you, ask them this question: where are your children schooling? That until you bring your children to this country, we will not vote for you. That is what we should be preaching. That is what we should be going for in the next election. So you also know that what they have done in this country is that they have reduced the Nigerian populace, the ordinary Nigerian, to more or less as slaves. And during the election, they come and throw some money around. This will get carried away, and they will vote without looking at the system. They have reduced them. They have pulverized them in such a way that they don't think you come and give 2,000, and people will go and vote for you because the country has been reduced to that extent of voting. You see, we have been told that they don't have enough money. They don't have. They have this. But let me tell you, the president need a strike. The president need pressure from any group to increase their duty to allowance by 100%, which they have just done recently. Because they are the one who benefit from duty to allowance. They travel to London, travel all over the world. They have increased, without any pressure from any group, they double the duty to allowance, increase it by 100%. But the salary for the ordinary Nigerian who is earning little, 30,000, what have you, it does not matter that you don't want to increase that, but you increase your duty to allowance, which they have just done, and you say there's no fund. It's priority and selfishness.
Well, Professor Emmanuel Osodeke, President of Academic Staff Union of Universities, thank you very much indeed for your time today.
Thank you very much.
Well, back in a moment. Stay with us.
As we are here on my office before me, Deputy Speaker and the Chairman of the House Committee on Public Account, he was forwarded to me a notice of impeachment of Deputy Governor of the President Barrister Mahadi Yusuf. I receive, and I assure you that I will treat it according to the provision of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999, as amended. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr.
So that gives a hint of the major political drama brewing in Zamfara State. The deputy governor has been served impeachment notice, and we had the first side of that story yesterday on the program, the publicity secretary of the APC in Zamfara State. And today we're getting another side. Perhaps, you know, this has even more than two sides to this, but let's get the other side to this. And we're joined on the program this morning by Colonel Bala Mande, who's the chairman of PDP Zamfara State. He joins us via Zoom from Gusau this morning. Thank you for joining us on the program. Well, some will say this was always coming, really. It was only a matter of when and not if. Are you surprised by all that is playing out first? Looks like, can you hear me, Colonel?
Yeah.
Okay, please go ahead.
When I saw what they did in the State House of Assembly, and I heard the spokesperson of the Zamfara State chapter of the All Progressive Congress. But you know, this nation is founded on law, and the government itself is founded on law. So we should be law-abiding citizens. The government of Zamfara State came into being as a result of court judgment. When we went into election in 2019, we came second as PDP. Then Matawale was our candidate. And there was a problem in the All Progressive Congress, the Zamfara State chapter at them. And they didn't conduct valid primary election according to Supreme Court judgment. And so the Supreme Court judgment ruled that the All Progressive Congress, Zamfara State, did not conduct valid primary election, and therefore their votes were null and void, and gave the right to the party that came second as the winner. And that is how we became government in Zamfara state, and all our candidates for the various legislative houses emerged as winners. So we formed the government as PDP. But shortly after we formed the government, we saw the governor petitioning all PDP members in government, and he began to romance with the All Progressive Congress. So later we learned he had an agenda to go into All Progressive Congress. And as it was, the events began to unfold, and eventually he moved into the All Progressive Congress. And we didn't go with him, his deputy didn't go with him, I didn't go with him, and the others didn't go with him. And we began to rebuild our party. And our party now in the state is very, very formidable, stronger than any other party. Now this is because we in the PDP will remain steadfast in honesty, integrity, and in our relationship with the people. This is what endeared the people to us.
Hey, Colonel.
So, yeah.
So clearly you're not surprised by all that is playing out. It was only a matter of time. But when you look at the allegations that have been placed, on the deputy governor, which are issues that I would like you to respond to in that statement put out by the State Assembly. It says abuse of office. It says this includes constitutional breach of section 190, 193, and it goes on and on. Also criminal self-enrichment using public funds. That's another allegation, a major one. And failure to discharge constitutional duties, which give rise to insubordination. Those are the allegations. How do you respond?
Well, Chamberlain, you see, I don't want at this time to open a can of worms concerning these allegations. The allegations of constitutional breaches, the allegation of self-enrichment, the allegations of criminality, it is not the deputy governor that will face those charges, but we know it is the government that will face these charges. But at a later time, we shall come to that. But let me tell you something. When the move for impeachment of the deputy governor began to filter out, the party went to the court. And at the court, we prayed for an interim injunction, stopping the speaker, the governor, the chief justice of the state themselves directly or indirectly by their agents or by any other person acting on their behalf to initiate any process for impeachment of the governor until the substantive case we took to the court has been heard and determined. We deposited this in the High Court in Abuja on the 9th of July 2021. And the case came up for mention on 19th of July 2021. On open mention of the case, the judge passed an order. I'll read the order to you for everyone to know. The court said it is hereby ordered as follows, that an order is made directing parties to maintain status quo ante bellum pending the hearing and determination of the motion ex parte dated and filed on the 9th day of July 2021. It is on this case of impeachment. It is based on the prayer we made to the Federal High Court in Abuja. So, for an institution which is the State House of Assembly and the government of Zamfara State which was founded on court orders, they are now turning around to violate the court orders because they have an agenda. There is no individual, organization, institution, or any government agency that is more powerful than the court. In short, what they are doing is what in law is called sub judice or contempt of court. But I will not go further to discuss on this because the case is before the court.
Well, Colonel, just not to discuss the substance of the matter, but you know, the argument they're thinking of the APC person who was on the program yesterday said that, well, ex parte order has a timeline, interim order has a timeline, so they think that that has elapsed, and so the assembly can go on with their proceedings since that has elapsed. That's the thinking.
Generally, they can think anything. That is their own thinking. That is the level of their understanding of law. That is what they are thinking, what they want. That is their wish. But their wish is not the law. The law is here. I have read out to you the court injunction. I will read it to you so that you can hear again.
Colonel, we heard it before, so just wondering, because if you say that, or you give the impression that you're not worried that whatever proceedings that they're going on with, depending on how the whole thing plays out, but if at the end of the day the deputy governor is impeached, isn't that going to dent his, you know, political CV or integrity? Even if you say, yeah, your party, you can handle this. The party is not worried about this.
No. It will do no damage on his CV, on his integrity, on his political career, because that action is done by people who are recalcitrant about law, who are not informed, who don't comply with the provision of the Constitution and the law of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. If they comply with it, they should read it. They have been served this order of the court. Where is this stated in this order that this order is valid for this lifespan? It has no lifespan. And therefore, what they are doing is an exercise in futility. Thank you.
Well, do you think there could, well, maybe I should put it this way. This whole impeachment thing of the governor, you said, I mean, the party saw it coming. Were there issues that may have informed the movement of the governor and members of the National Assembly from the PDP to the APC, and have those issues been resolved, if any?
You see, the governor, when he came to us in 2011, he was sent packing. He was in AMPP. He wanted to be the governor in AMPP in 2011. But probably they understood him better than us. So they did not give him the opportunity. They gave it to Abdul Aziz Yari, the immediate past governor of Zamfara state. And because they didn't give to Bello Matawale, he ran to us in 2011 that he wanted to join our party. When we got satisfied with his explanation, we accepted him, and then we started working together. He went around lobbying all of us that he would want to contest. He had the state at heart. He was going to work with all of us so that we can correct the ills that have been taking place in the state. And we gave him the opportunity. Soon after he became the governor, we didn't know he had a hidden agenda to petition the PDP and embrace the APC. And that was what he did. Within 2 weeks, he petitioned all the PDP members in the government and then embrace members of the APC, giving them appointments without consultation with us. And then the drama began to emerge that he was going to become. Before he became, we have heard about it for over a year. He set up a committee for his movement to APC. None of us members of the PDP was a party or a member that we remained calm until he became. And we now came together to rebuild our party. So whatever his reasons are, they are not him because he didn't tell us anything about his becoming, and we had no cause to follow. The deputy governor remained with us, and the deputy governor became a rallying point for PDP in the state, and we began to once again wax stronger.
Okay,
well, that makes us.
Well, Colonel, just one thing, I mean, that you said, you know, about the fact that the PDP wasn't aware, we didn't know, you know, a lot of the things about the governor. Is that in any way saying that you have regrets for taking him into the fold?
Not exactly we have regret. But you see, you don't understand. People come to present themselves in some light for you, and you believe them because you are honest. You don't believe a person that has been a member of the National Assembly and holding key position would come and lie to you so that he can reach where he wants to reach. We believe him, and we have no regret because he's with us. In short, we are happy that he has become the governor, and the people of the state now understand who he is. It should not only the people of the state, the nation and the entire world is understanding who he is.
Right.
He is
I imagine if you had said that you regretted it, then it will question your own, you know, process of bringing up candidates in the party. But so let's get this clear as we wind down. The House of Assembly says, well, it's an ex parte order, so we can go ahead. There's a time frame. For the deputy governor, I imagine the stance is, well, the court is clear on this, and you have to wait until the court, you know, gives another pronouncement or whatsoever. I know that this court process should have proceeded because it was adjourned, and I imagine that that had moved on. But for the deputy governor, does that mean he's not taking this with any pinch of salt? He's not worried? He's not going to respond to the impeachment process?
See, the deputy governor is a lawyer and is law-abiding. He knows what is court order, and he knows what is contempt of court. Should the deputy governor now go and attend to the wish of the State House of Assembly, then he also should be guilty of contempt of court. And because he is law-abiding, he respects the ruling of the court. That is why he is not responding to the drama the State House of Assembly is doing. He's not going to be a party to the contempt of court.
This is all drama, and he will not partake in any of it?
No.
Well, I'm sure that the coming days will be quite interesting in Zamfara, but there's also that big talk about security, how this affects the security in the state. But for now, we'll have to thank you so much, the chairman of the PDP in Zamfara State, Colonel Balamande, for shedding light on this issue. Thank you so much.
All right, we might as well just move on to take some feedback coming through from you. We've got this one, a tweet from Olagunju Oladide says, erratic power supply and now fuel scarcity. The scarcity of fuel, which is usually the key price of commodities going up, never coming down. Hopefully, it gets sorted out before the nuisance of scarcity of fuel pushes prices up.
Take a look at this one from Festus Kimboyewa, saying, does it mean we don't have enough reserve of fuel to cope with any unexpected shock? The current fuel shortage has again shown that lessons have not been learned from the previous fuel shortages, which is a shame.
Well, this one is a mail from Henry on the same issue. The root cause analysis, if eventually done, will reveal failure of regulation, particularly the absence of quality management practices. Moving forward, every imported product must be certified wholesome before leaving the ports, and a specified official must be held responsible for each step of the process. The FG should wake up to apply sanctions for service failure, especially on issues that bring her so low before the whole world.
Mori has this to say: the greatest tragedy of the Nigerian situation is that people are not held accountable. No consequence management for failings by government officials. Who pays for the repairs of the damaged vehicles, especially in this period of very low disposable income? Innocent citizens bearing the raw brunt of government inefficiency and ineptitude. A very raw deal. That's from Sam Omori.
All right, next one is from Dixon, who says, the continuous and increasing queues in filling stations in Abuja and some other cities is unacceptable. The Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited and its allies maintain that there is enough fuel for the nation's consumption capacity, and the marketers are not selling, complaining of not having fuel to sell. Who do we believe? There are some filling stations that don't open at all. Do they have fuel and refuse to sell to sabotage the government? Or they truly don't have fuel to sell? Or is it government frustrating us to accept the price hike, which they call subsidy removal? Don't we have regulatory agencies that can make the excesses of marketers anymore? What's going on?
Questions.
Valid questions.
Really. Well, don't forget, we saw your mail, Paul, talking about the chat that we raised earlier, the issue we raised in the chat when we opened the program. But unfortunately, we are completely out of time right now.
Yeah.
Well, we have to thank you so much for watching today's program. And thank you for your feedback. Very valid questions on the issue of petrol raised, and we hope that there'll be many more answers in the coming days. Thank you for watching. I'm Maupe Ogun Yusuf.
Well, do what you can to make Nigeria great today and every day. I'm Kayode Okikili.
So help me God. I'm Ayomakede. Have a wonderful day.
What does that leave me with? Okay, I'm Chamber, so we'll see you next time.